The design process for any culture is never random. We start the whole process by trying to find the central graphic motif, the design signature that speaks across a whole race of people. In the case of the Dwarves, it's about thinking of their cultural reference in architecture, how they mine the granite below their feet, how they're empowered by the riches of the world and their need to hoard those riches, and how that brings a signature to the way they may dress, the way they may adorn their hair. All of these things start to build a rounded design that hopefully gels them as a culture and makes them significant in the eyes of the audience.
This is the first time that we'll have the opportunity to actually get to know a dwarvish race, and I honestly believe that Peter is going to do for dwarves what Tolkien did for elves, removing what nursery rhyme and folktale has done, which is to diminish them. If you talk to the man in the street and said the word elf before Lord of the Rings, an elf would be similar to a fairy, something quite small, lives underground, perhaps in the garden. And after the Lord of the Rings, the whole nature of elves has changed in people's imaginations, and they've reacquired a certain grandeur that they lost. And I think, honestly, that Peter's going to pull it off with dwarves.
So the fictional race of dwarves is told by Tolkien, a very unique group of characters in their physiology, their stature. They almost see eye to eye with a hobbit, but they couldn't be further from a hobbit.
They have a very short stature, but at the same time we want to reflect that they're like little armoured tanks. They're very, not someone to be trifled with.
They're warmongers at some level. They've been hardened in the mines, and therefore they're these wonderful, tough, nuggety, stout characters.
They are people of the earth, a tough race, but they're also a very insular race. They, in other words, they don't mix with people. They're not a social type of people.
They're one of the most intriguing races because they're so secretive. Secretive with their language, secretive with where they came from. They're also an incredibly noble race and proud race.
They're a powerful, resolute folk who will fight you as intensely as possible on the things that they disagree with you on, and be your most loyal companion on the things at which you agree upon.
Very early on, Jamie did an early dwarf sculpture that humanised and gave a quality to the level of design that we were pursuing.
It was just a quick maquette, just, a hooded dwarf. I mean, obviously it goes back to a lot of the Scandinavian and Norse Teutonic kind of myths. So it's a very European-based concept of what these individuals were seen as. We know that that's what Tolkien had drawn on.
Developing the characters of the dwarves came mostly maybe 10% from Tolkien, because that's really, just about all there is for most of them in the book. It came from, 50%, 60% of choosing the actors to play the characters. But then the other 30-40% came from Weta Workshop.
There was, as always, a lot of speculation in the workshop as to what a dwarf was going to be. Now, the only character reference we actually had, I guess, from Peter's interpretation was Gimli from Lord of the Rings.
We realised really early on that if you have 13 dwarves that all look like Gimli on screen, it's just, it's going to be, one, visually uninteresting, and two, confusing.
Your thoughts wander to some of the dwarves that are sitting next to Gimli in the Council of Elrond, who are basically hairy squares and frowny big square foreheads. And so they're the dwarves that you've only ever seen. And as a concept designer who has been briefed and watched Fellowship of the Ring and everything, that's your starting point.
We took an original cue from some of that stuff in Moria, the quite geometric forms and sort of indicative of them as craftsmen. All their straight edges and angles is reflective of that mastery of that art form.
Whenever Tolkien offers anything, we'll hang so much on it, and that's never more the case with Tolkien's development of his alphabets. The Dwarven alphabet has got an amazing architectural quality of it, as if hewn from the rock. And those elements, those graphic motifs, play a huge part in developing the graphics in everything from the simple embroidered band on the edge of a piece of clothing right through to how the pillars of a mountain may be held up. There is such wealth in those original ideas.
That one, the angles are pleasing. They kind of follow the logic of what's already there, and the geometric lines.
He's going to be a terrific soldier.
Often we start design many, many months before an actor is hired, but you've got to get going. So you utilise any means available to you.
We were doing a lot of drawings and stuff, and then Alan and John, they took a photograph of each other, and then in Photoshop, they changed how they looked and turned themselves into dwarves.
John and I took photographs of each other and then just photoshopped large noses and beards and ears and moustaches.
Peter saw that and loved it. I think he saw how you could take an actor, or a designer in this case, and very quickly and in Photoshop come up with a very realistic exploration of what a dwarf might look like.
It's not in the contract, but it's almost a byline of working at the workshop that you are going to be put into something at some stage in your career there. So very early on, we were testing the male dwarven characters on a couple of the workshop guys.
Of course, it makes for great entertainment when we finally get to the first makeup desk and we get to glue a dwarf prosthetic onto the mould maker.
Oh, I've hit the big time.
It looks fantastic.
Thanks. I haven't even got the makeup on yet.
In our first test, we had dwarves with huge ears, massive faces, noses that overhung their mouths.
We definitely tried the extreme first, really trying to try every trick in the book to make these guys feel really squat and powerful.
It made a huge difference when we actually had the actor who was going to be cast in each role confirmed to us and we started seeing pictures of them, because we're all imagining what these characters might be.
We gave Weta Workshop a photo of that actor, and they photoshopped different designs over the top of those photos and looked at them on the wall, and they were the actors' faces, photographs, with this wonderful Photoshop artwork.
We went through an extensive, very fast period of design, interacting with Peter almost daily.
You might want to try some, not so much big pointy noses like this, but something with a noble line to it. I mean, that's almost there, actually. It's just maybe a little bit too curved on top.
In the very early stages, you get to do your version of it. So, you're getting paid to do the character that you read in the books.
They would come back to us with maybe 6 or 7 different designs for Bombur or 6 or 7 different designs for Balin. They just try different things.
Ori, for the most part, Ori is a total miss. This guy's a comedy dwarf, okay? This guy's a mummy's boy. Yeah. So he's got to appear pretty dorky. So, putting that haircut on this guy here could be quite funny.
In turn, what you're doing is you're funneling from the widest possible spectrum of ideas down and down and down and down and down until you get to the thing that's built.
And we got to a point where we chose one look, which was then sculpted in clay, full size.
Sculpture can be rotated 360 degrees, so a director can look at it straight on, just like the image, but then can move around it, can stand above it, look underneath it, and understand it as a form.
When you see where his eyeballs are, feels like you could afford to have a little bit more meat in there underneath his hair.
I remember endless meetings at Weta Workshop and trying to get points of difference with the dwarves. And we always would explore battle injuries and scars. And somewhere in the middle of all those conversations, I just thought it would be cool to have a broken orc axe embedded in one of their heads. And Biffa was the one who got the gold ticket.
The axe in the head is just pure Peter. We're rolling our eyes as he's explaining it to us, and we're like, really, Pete?
It's ridiculous, but part of that appealed to me. I mean, to me, there is a childish charm about the dwarves, particularly in the Hobbit. I mean, that's kind of where it came from. It's just something that's rather silly.
We like this Dory.
Dory, he's very fussing. He fusses about a lot.
He's a bit fussy dwarf. He's all like this, and he's a bit finicky.
And so we thought giving him a very fussy hairdo would suit his character quite well.
These are two of quite a few different head patterns, because Peter liked the beard enough, and it's ornate and it's plaited, but it's also functional because it's keeping his beard out of the way, because they're going to be going through forests and thorn bushes and all sorts of stuff like that.
We did a round of designs, Photoshop work with John Callan, giving him the long ski-wrap nose and a huge, great big moustache and a long, big droopy beard that then flicked up at the end. And that was all going very, very well. Meanwhile, Frank Victoria and Lindsey Crummett were doing some amazing stuff for Barlin with a very intricate beard that had these curls and this little stinger thing on the back, and were very woolly. And then at some point, Peter and Fran and Philippa looked at them and went, these are going to work better if we switch them.
So they literally switched the two designs, and that Barlin design became Oin.
And looking at them, it's like, yeah, actually, that works really, really well.
Bombur. He is the fattest of them all, and therefore he needs to be portrayed as that.
One of the ideas that I had for Bombur was the idea that because he's fairly food orientated, that his beard and hair could actually be small containers that he secrets away particular tidbits that he'll nibble on later. So the food influence for Bombur was quite big.
Almost as a bit of a lark, I designed Bombur with this beard, which was just this big donut, this big circle, because it's just one more circle that emphasises his character. And in a meeting, Peter was like, yep, that one there.
Bombur looks amazing.
Yeah, we think Bombur's great.
By this stage, Peter had seen a lot of designs, and he really wanted to see something different for Nori, something that's crazy, that hasn't been seen yet. And so I came up with the kind of what's called the starfish now. And yeah, Pete really liked it.
They did a very good job of pushing the variation. And that's, I think, where Peter was quite clever in that respect, that he would allow these huge, diverse differences. And then when you see them as a group, they work.
There was a great moment, I remember, when we were in the meeting room and the actors had arrived in New Zealand a few weeks before we were due to start shooting, and they had no idea what they were going to look like.
All right, so I will welcome you all here. Thank you very, very much. Those of you that have travelled all this way and those that haven't, but it's fantastic. This is the Dwarves and Bilbo.
So we tried to make everyone iconic. Everyone has a very distinctive look, but still keeping in the essence of what a dwarf should be. Nori!
They all clapped and cheered as each photo came up to see what basically they were going to be looking like for the next 2.5 years.
Ori being the youngest of the troop.
After you'd seen one, like you'd see your one, and you said, well, how can it get better than that? Or how can it equal that? How can anybody be... And they managed it. They really did. Yeah.
He's got the rusty remains of an orc axe stuck in his head that can't be pulled out without doing worse damage than has already been done.
If I'm the guy with the axe in his head, I'm happy.
One of the things we found back in the Lord of the Rings days is if you take a regular size actor and you reduce them to the height of one of Tolkien's dwarves, they do just look like a person shrunk. I mean, they don't actually have the status and the gravity and the nuggety kind of quality that you imagine one of these fantastical dwarves to have. What we had to do, and it was a real trick, and we spent a long time trying to figure this out, is we bulk them out so that when they were reduced, they didn't feel like a little human being.
You have to give the illusion that their limbs are thicker, their groin is lower, their knees are lower, so therefore their legs are shorter, their feet are larger, their hands are larger, and in turn their head is larger.
Head-to-body ratio was one of the big things. A dwarf has a 5-to-1 head-to-body ratio, as in their head will fit inside their body 5 times. A human is usually around 7 or 8 for a fully grown man. So increasing the size of their head, increasing the size of their hands all came into our initial prototyping.
Peter did something really interesting. Very early on, he said he wanted to be able to pick each dwarf out of a silhouette. In a group, you could tell who you were looking at just literally by their silhouette.
How do you get an audience to watch a shot where silhouetted actors are walking across the top of a mountain and you go, there's him and I know him and I remember him, and because without that it just becomes a mush.
We did several drawings between myself and Weta Workshop. We literally just drew around the photographs of the actors and got a basic silhouette shape. I mean, there were about 8 or 9 rows of 13 dwarves with just silhouettes, some with round shoulders, big shoulders, all guided by what Peter had said about certain characters.
Some had to be more specifically heroic, some had to be extremely rotund and sort of more comedic.
That sort of shape is quite funny for Biffa. It's quite a slightly comical shape because his head looks quite large but he's got this little tummy, and I think that's quite funny and quite humorous.
At that point, we started making the fat suits and getting that silhouette to the point that Peter had chosen.
We had a rough sort of outline, a silhouette that we were trying to achieve for each of the dwarves. And basically, piece by piece, body part by body part, we had to trial and error to create those shapes.
So these basically became components, and so you'd have a thigh component, a calf component, a chest, a belly, a shoulder, it's almost like replicating the anatomy.
It's so fiendishly clever how they're able to articulate with your body so that there's no part of you that doesn't look as if it's that actual size.
We have many different sizes of fat suits. It makes us look wider and therefore shorter.
Tell you what, why don't you put your pants in?
So as soon as you make everything bigger, it just makes you look shorter.
Yeah.
All of them have the same basic principle bodysuit. So they all have a chest piece and they all have thigh and calves, and they all have their own individual body type.
We had heroic characters, Thorin and Philly and Killy. So, it's keeping a heroic form, but also getting it dwarven as well.
Thorin's physique is very much based around his experience on the battlefield. So he has very wide, broad shoulders and sort of strong arms and a strong bot as well, which is quite useful.
Some of us have fat suits. I, of course, refer to mine as a muscle suit, because it's not a fat suit. Bombur's is a fat suit.
This is the piece de resistance. He has quite a round belly that's about 2 metres in circumference, and his moves...
The moobs, as we call them, the man boobs.
They kind of rest on his belly in some way, so they sort of have this really organic feel to them.
We did end up looking at a lot of fat, naked men pictures, to be perfectly blunt, in order to get to the point of knowing what he should look like.
When he first put it on and sort of ran around the room, everyone was in fits of laughter. He loved it, and it was like, you can't see his feet or anything like that, but it just moved, and he went like that, and it did its thing, and it was fantastic.
Well, at least we got the size right, gang.
Yeah, I think that's very good. That's very good.
It's like building anything, a house or whatever. You have to set your foundations, and our foundations were the body shapes and the silhouettes, and then from there we started bringing in details, and we can actually start making the costumes.
Costume design is really helping the director tell the story in the way that he wants to tell it.
When you think of The Hobbit, it's kind of very easy to think of almost 13, clones. Like, even the way Tolkien describes them, I mean, they've got different coloured hoods, and their individuality is because one's got a red hood and one's got a green hood and a yellow hood and so on. And it was important to me that audiences get to know them individually.
I may have various shades and textures in browns, and the next person has got reds, and there's someone over here who's greenish and greyish. Those kind of things help identify who these people are.
Biffa, Bofa and Bombur are the plebs. Tolkien says they're not part of a royal line. And so you were having to make sure that they looked scruffier in their appearance.
You sort of drop down quite a few pegs in the world standing, or the dwarven world standing, and the fabrics are a lot more textural. They're using hessians and really rough silks.
Many layers, gorgeous, beautiful, detailed, kind of heavy braided cotton and wool and da-da-da. And then finally I've got a hat, a very funny hat.
And when we first put it on him, it did have this sort of wonky shape that Fran really liked.
It just sticks up by itself and it does this thing, and suddenly you've just got this attitude, this fabulous sort of wackiness.
Of course, it's just another layer on top of your head, and we all know that hats keep your head warm. So he's got, the dwarven head, the wig, and a fur-lined hat. Poor Jimmy, sorry about that.
And then we get into Dori Nori Ori. The mauves and the sort of lilacs and the purples, and they're sort of quite hard colours to work with, really.
I would send Adam Brown, Ori, into a kind of lavender, because, those sort of softer, more girly purples. I think that might work for him.
Sure, no,
I think he can be less of a bloke.
The lilac-y sort of thing did lend itself quite well to Ori in the end, and it all sort of came together, and mixing that in with the grey and then with the knitting, and he's a mummy's boy.
He looks very cosy and cuddly, and you want to mother him, and that's the whole point. He's not got to look like a warrior.
I think Ori has the best costume. It may not be the most macho of costumes, but it's very practical when it's cold.
There's two dwarves with that blood red colour, really. Gloins has it, and so does Balin. And the difficulty with Balin was the fact that they very definitely wanted him to have a grey beard, and so it immediately steers you towards Santa. But he still had to be red. That was the key colour mentioned by Tolkien.
So Balin had that very distinctive sort of ski ramp, as I call it, shape to his beard, and it rolled off his nose. Everything zoomed down and then had a little flick on the end. And I was really, really pleased to see that the costume department also integrated that into his costume, so that became a signature of his character, and he had the same little things going on in the flicks in his toes of his shoes, just little wee accents in his collars and the cut of his cloth, all had that same shape.
Balin and Dwalin, family members, but they are quite different fellows. Balin's more the philosopher, sort of educator, as opposed to Dwalin, who's a big battleship sort of thing of a dwarf.
And he has a fur collar, which we've shaved into to create a pattern, so it looks sort of sharper and strong. He has very distinctive boots, very furry, and he's a bit wolf-like, really.
We've all got different styles of boots. I've got the ones with the little furry tops, which I'm obviously very partial to.
Do you know what that is?
Tar.
It's a kind of goat. It's a mountain goat.
And all the dwarven boots are completely unique.
Really well-grounded, solid, chunky boots with straps and things like that for the more warrior types. And then sort of Bombur's got a bit more of a sort of a shoe which is sort of very round and rotund and sort of gathered up, a bit like he is, sort of all squashed in and sausaged sort of thing. And it's just taking ideas and making them sort of a metaphor for what that character is.
You've got to make somebody look short and squat when they're 6 foot tall, and they've got to have a heavy, solid-looking dwarven boot. So you have to exaggerate their foot size. Otherwise, they'll look like they've got dainty little feet.
Well, the boots are brilliantly constructed. We're wearing a boot that fits us as a human actor for support and everything, which is then built around to make the actual boots.
So that's your inner boot, and that is the boot which is actually fitted to the actor. Then that gets screwed to the sole of that, with packing around the toe, around the heel, so it actually feels like a natural pair of boots.
For me, the footwear is the foundation of any character. It makes an actor stand differently, that makes them walk differently, it helps them get into the character.
I actually can't play the character without the boots now, because sometimes they'll just do like an upper body shot and they'll say, you can take the boots off if you want, and I can't do it. I can't play the character in flip-flops. It just doesn't work.
tips and noses are very challenging because if they look too droopy, they change the character of the person dramatically.
Yeah.
Probably the largest single daily challenge is that of prosthetics.
It's immense, you know, because on any given day, not only do you have the main cast, you have their stunt double, which is also putting the full makeup.
This requires, in our company, to do an unprecedented manufacturing of prosthetics every day.
Hi, I'm Kim Doherty, and you're at Weta Workshop. You're up in the encapsulated silicon prosthetics room where we've been making all the hero dwarfs. We have been making around 30 to 40 prosthetics a day.
The daily dwarfing, it starts with a headpiece, which is like a cowl on the back of the head to widen the ears, which was like having 2 cups over your ears so you can't really hear. It's like having headphones on.
Some of the ears come way out to here.
Yeah.
And it's really like living in a fishbowl for them.
So I probably don't need one of those little trumpet things that Richard's got.
Yeah, Richard's got, yeah.
I found some baby comforters that are made of silicone, so I chopped the ends off and stuck that inside the ear and glued it to my own ear, so it creates like a little ear trumpet.
Yes, Richard, it's a baby nipple.
Yeah.
That he's cut up and he puts in his ears so he can hear better.
So before the wig goes on, I look ridiculous. Everyone looks so weird.
Hello, man, baby. Put yourself in the fetus position.
Just stop it.
He spends half his job in the fetal position.
Put your feet up. In fetal man, baby.
This is the kind of abuse that I get.
It's just like a big piece of steak.
It won't kill you.
Peter was very vocal about the fact that he didn't want to have prosthetics glued onto the actors' lower faces.
He didn't want anything under the eyes to create any type of irritation or puffiness or anything.
Because I know they had huge problems with Gimli back in the days of doing Lord of the Rings. And John Rhys Davies, I know, was really uncomfortable. And they've come a long way now with prosthetics.
It was only Bombur who ultimately ended up with a full lower facial prosthetic.
Stephen's head's so large we have to have 2 makeup artists.
Yeah.
Bombur's the monster, and he has what goes on is he has a foam cowl with ears.
This is part 1 of 5. Part 1 of 5 pieces that I did on the morning.
Bombur's chin, or neck really, that goes underneath all his other prosthetics just to fill him out a bit.
Piece number 2. He's got such a huge double chin. On the first day I saw him, he actually kept his BlackBerry tucked into his chin. And he was talking to me and he went, sorry, I just got to... He reached in and he pulled out his cell phone. You know. Make sure I've got my phone on me all the time.
Hey, you're the one with any pants on. Well, I don't know, it's hard to tell.
Oh, was it a change tent?
His facial piece goes all the way, like a Gimli style. I call it a Batman piece. It just goes around the nose to the cheeks.
Piece number 3.
And then he has another chin bit that goes on over top of the foam that's silicone. And then he has a top of head. He has that kind of friar tuck haircut.
There's piece 4 and 5 going on. The only part that's me that you can see is just below my eyes and my lips. And the rest is stuck on Bombur. Ta-da! Ginger headman. Oh, not you, Matt.
We only use a prosthetic once. It's all about the edge. Once you blend in the edge into the skin, it virtually you can't use it again. So each piece is one use only. Then it goes in the bin. One of my assistants started counting up all the pieces that we've used according to call sheets. She didn't complete the count yet, but she was up to 4,200 pieces, and that's not including hobbits or other characters. It was just for the dwarves.
Eyes feel good today.
That's good.
When we were coming up with the tattoo idea, what they were, and one of the thoughts was that it's a sort of pictorial history of what's happened to the dwarf race. It's a memorial almost to our suffering.
He's my favorite part of this job, is coming to work and being able to put this on him and hear his stories and laugh with him.
And put up with the abuse.
Abuse.
How many freckles do you have?
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
14.
14?
I think you should start adding one a day till the end.
As well as all the makeup on the face, we've got these hands that we put on like a rubber glove, really, but made a thick, thick rubber, and they mould with our joints in our fingers.
They make our hands look incredibly real in proportion to the rest of the dwarf body.
It's a brand new hand, especially for you.
I mean, Bombur's hands are, really, really sausage fingers.
We need someone to put hands on. Should I just put his hands on?
First day they put it on, I found myself just staring at them because they look so lifelike, but they're bigger. Oh, there we go. That's it.
And they allow us to do whatever we need to do in terms of fine work, in terms of fingers and holding things, or holding weapons and fighting. But they're also quite hard work. The tiredness, the heat.
This is the worst part. If I can delay putting these hands on, I will.
Come on, you can do it.
My face and my beard is really not a problem, but when your hands, you can't feel the air on your hands. It's that's the thing. When I take them off, take my hands off, blowing on them and then put them back on. That's the thing that is the least enjoyable of it. Torture.
If there was a way of seeing more of Dwalin's arms, you mean, Graham, we sort of bring your skin up, we hide the elbows so we haven't got the issue with the creases.
Yeah.
But from there onwards, we give you nice bulgy dwarfular biceps with tattoos and scars, and because it just feels like you're too covered and too sort of protected.
Everybody else has prosthetic hands, and I have to pull on these really enormous gloves, I guess, that go to just above the elbow.
1, 2, 3.
So on top of everything else, I think each arm weighs 8 pounds, or 7 to 8 pounds. His forearms are huge.
How's that feel?
Yep.
Okay.
Cool. The forearms, they're pretty good. I love my forearms. I know this is coming for a little bit of stick from Mark Hadlow, who's just a bitter, small man with a limited imagination.
I mean, for a Scotsman who's got big muscles, he's got the worst, from here down. They're like little string beans. It's amazing, his real arms. They're terrible. I mean, it's like he's like got witch's little arms. Oh, look at me, got little arms. But he puts these big arms just to make himself look tough, which are tattered. Look, I've got tattoos. I'm Graham McTavish and I've got tattoos. Take that off, he's got nothing. He's a weed.
Yeah, but it does make him look a lot cooler, and he does have, pretty decent forearms with them. You see, I don't really need them because, girls tell me the forearms are one of my strengths. I do have, we're talking about a diameter of at least 7 or 8 inches there, which is a lot more than anyone else would have. I mean, a lot more than Mark Hadlow, for instance, would have. I mean, he wouldn't have forearms like this. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I think his fingers may be a little too fat.
Yeah.
Is it just me?
Yeah, no. Have you got a smaller set of hands?
No, but we could sculpt some smaller ones if they're a problem.
It feels, because he's younger, that you could probably get away with slightly finer fingers.
Very early on, Pete said to us, I want to be more bold. I want the dwarves to look like a race of dwarves from Middle-earth, as Tolkien would have imagined them. So when we first presented the dwarves, in the case of some of them, Fran and Phil were concerned that maybe we'd gone too far. We'd lost these amazing characters that had been hired to play the dwarves.
A lot of these actors have been cast because of who they are. And James Nesbitt had been cast because he's a particular kind of actor and he's got this Irish humour and so on and so forth. So the first show and tell we did with him, we didn't recognise him at all. We'd lost James completely.
So much of what's critical of Jimmy's face is this beautiful sparkle that he has in his eyes and this cheeky grin that makes him who he is.
So we did about 4 different prosthetics on him in the end to get the proportion right. So he still has a little bit, but only a little bit.
Oh my God.
I did a few show and tells when I came out in all my costume and makeup, and instantly Fran and Philippa and Pete were like, yes, but the nose is too big.
Yes, the nose is too large.
The nose is too large.
And that happened actually 3 times. My nose was too big 3 times. So it went from being like this to kind of the size of my nose, which is still fairly big.
The big design challenge for us was giving the sternness, the weight, and the thickness in the forehead without causing it to overshadow the eyes.
Keely started off with quite a lot of prosthetics, and there was a lot of latex going on, and different dimensions, a much bigger nose and a bigger forehead, and different sort of shaping on the eyebrows.
What became apparent, I guess, to Fran and Phil is that Aidan's face had to all but 100% speak through the makeup. For his handsome demeanour and twinkle that is in Aidan's eye and in the way he presents this character, we had little ability to encumber that with prosthetics. And ultimately, Aidan is wearing a cowl that slightly increases his head size with the extension ears out on them, and then just a tiny little prosthetic on the tip of his nose.
Have you seen this? Aidan Turner, Adam Brown. Aidan Turner, Adam Brown.
If you were to draw the long straw, he drew it.
So yeah, he has changed quite a lot, but I think a lot of people have. I mean, Thorin has too.
On this character, you do need to be able to read a huge amount of information from his face. I think up to now, Thorin's had 5 faces.
We started off, he had quite a heavy forehead, and he had a much larger nose than he has now.
All right, I think the forehead's a little bit too big. And
Lift it, bring it down, yeah.
Wasn't sexy. That was the issue. We were still testing while we were shooting, so we've had to go back and reshoot certain close-ups.
We also decided that too long a beard on Richard was too distracting.
Tolkien described Thorin as having a forked beard that he tucked into his belt. We have had to depart from that. I know this is controversial because the king of the Longbeards, people feel he should have a long beard, but there was something I found to sort of ease my conscience a bit. It's in The Hobbit that when the dwarves emerged from Erebor, they had singed beards, so the reason Thorin wears his beard short has been reverence to those dwarves that had died in the mountain. You know, when he becomes king, he'll grow that beard back.
The beards?
Yeah.
They're all real. Well, they're all real.
Yeah, they. They're yak hair. Most of them are yak hair.
See, like, totally gave it away there.
Oh, sorry.
A lot of things were done to make these people, who are normal size, to make them look like they're short, 4'6" people. We used yak hair, which is coarse and thick, and we can very easily get a lot of volume to help us with the proportion. This lot is about 1 kilo of hair. So we've used 100 lots of this to make wigs and beards.
And do you find you have a little itch going on here?
Oh, yeah, every day.
And the netting comes away a little bit?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Jamie Lee puts up with the shit that I give her from the perspective, do I need the facial yet? Please leave the mow off just until we're ready to go. Because I hate facial hair on me. I'm just like... Thank you so much.
We'll do this after.
Yeah, okay. Can we leave it off for 5 minutes? And then she'll come up to me and be hovering, and I'll say, can we leave it off for another 5 minutes? And then you sort of drive you both crazy by just saying, can we just leave the facial hair off just for another 5 minutes, please?
The makeup I haven't found a problem at all. I like the makeup. Sticking on facial hair, though, it's never good. I did grow an enormous beard before I came here that I was very proud of, but then they told me I had to shave it off. I was really, really pissed off. Really pissed off. And now, of course, Richard Armitage, Aidan Turner, Dina Gorman, they've all got their own beards.
We had a 10-week break, and I thought, well, here's a good opportunity to grow something real. There's so much of the head and the face that's doesn't belong to me, I thought it'd be good to mix it up.
I had a few months off before the shoot, and I went, I bet I can grow a wicked beard. And I could. And but I got over here, and Peter looked at me and went, no, I'm going to shave that. We want you with some stubble.
They had a stick on one of these, and I and sometimes they're a bit troublesome because they can, with the heat and stuff, they can peel off. So I grew my own, not realizing quite how ridiculous outside of costume I would look. In the costume it's great because I have a moustache that goes over it, and this here is fantastic, and it saves me some time in the morning as well. But in real life,
oh, yeah, look at our beards. But I've got to stick one on. Anyway, it's fine.
Another opportunity to define each character is define them by the weapon they carry and how they carry it. I mean, the axes of the dwarves, it's kind of a cliche that is their signature weapon, and indeed it is. But if you read The Lord of the Rings, while Gimli has axes, you go back and read The Hobbit, they talk about swords. So there was the opportunity there to design what does a dwarven sword look like. And then you couldn't just have all the characters carrying exactly the same weapon.
So with the weapons, it kind of goes hand in hand with designing their silhouettes and their different appearances. We wanted to make singular statements about each of those characters.
Some have axes, some have hammers, some have boar spears, some have slingshots, as it turns out, some have bows, some have swords, all different shapes. So the idea then became, let's develop something very distinctive for each individual dwarf.
The weapons particularly, we had a huge involvement in how they would come out.
If any of you have been thinking about ideas for potential weapons that you want to use and through the movie, now would be a good time to have an initial chat.
We were asked to come up with ideas, not just axes and swords, but what other weapons we thought that our characters might come up with, and those weapon choices were informed by our backstory of where we'd come from.
They kind of threw their ideas out to us to say, well, maybe my character could have this sort of weapon. At that point, it was a sort of a two-way street of throwing ideas around, so it was quite neat.
Balin wanted a weapon that was a cross between an axe and a sword.
What you're talking about in terms of like a kind of a combination weapon, there's a weapon that kind of looks more like that.
Yeah. And so out came this rather weird-looking effect with a bit with tenderizing bits on it.
You have no idea where it comes from. It's a weird weapon that is really not of our world and that really belongs into this world, but it's still plausible as a weapon.
I have to be honest, I think it's one of the most standout bits of design in the whole film in terms of just a totally unique piece of weaponry.
So there's a lot of strange, weird and wonderful ways to kill people.
I just thought that Dwalin would have names for his axes, because he's that kind of guy, And I remember that Emily Bronte had two dogs called Grasper and Keeper, and I always remembered it. I just thought, what an extraordinary pair of names. Not Fluffy and Fifi. Just these are dogs that are going to do stuff to you. And I mentioned, as you do, in passing to Peter, that Grasper and Keeper would be good names for my axes. Just for me, just as a character thing for me. And Peter was like, yeah, well, that's great. Yeah, we can have them inscribed on the blades of your axes. Okay. And practically the next day, there they were.
Grasper, Keeper.
That's one of the great things about this job is the attention to detail and the speed with which they're able to accomplish something.
This one grasps your soul. This one keeps it.
Nothing's just thrown together. It's just over and over and over again. The amount of show and tells you have, showing your costume and makeup and weaponry and seeing what works and what doesn't.
If Graham is going to end up wearing large hands, rather than put Graham into fingerless gloves like that, which will hide a lot of the skin, why don't we think about turning it into weaponry, like he's got knuckle dusters woven into his knuckles? Why don't we design something that's not a leather fingerless glove like that, but it's more like a chain metal thing, and it could have knuckle duster type points on it, so that it almost becomes a weapon component. But it does a little bit, but it could be bits of mail it could be seeing skin in between. You know, it's like strings of mail.
Could it come back to a wrist strap?
Yeah,
because that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
That would be great to be able to, you know. Yeah, I don't need my axe because I've got this.
And before you know it, we actually have these whole leather strappings that go right down his forearms and onto his hands that carry these heavy steel blades. Asymmetrical, both are different.
Richard, being the genius that he is, just came up with these knuckle dusters that I wear that are amazing. I can't wait to use them. Do some serious orc damage with a pair of knuckle dusters.
Insult, injury.
That's how I view my hands, as one is called insult, one's called injury. I think everybody's got amazing weapons. I mean, even Ori, who essentially has a slingshot. But it's really deadly.
I was fortunate enough to start drawing some of those ideas up, and then I said to Richard, well, I've got a slingshot at home. It actually was my father's. He made it when he was a boy. Carved it himself. And I said, should we just show it to Peter? And so we popped it in a bag, sent it down to Peter, and it came back with a post-it note on it. Fantastic. This is great. Just make it dwarven sized.
It might look nothing in comparison to the big swords of Feely and Keely, but no, it's deadly.
I designed quite a few of the weapons for Feely. Twin swords and twin daggers stashed down his sleeves and twin throwing axes. The throwing axes for Feely, we played with a lot of different arrangements as to how they would work. We had them strung in a series like a bandolier across his chest, and they ultimately ended up being in his boots.
He's like a hedgehog. He's just like bristling with all these armaments. He's got his weapons at the ready, so to speak.
There's always a single prop that causes some trepidation and everyone wants to have a go at it. And ultimately, probably everyone did have a go. And of course, that's Orchrist, the quintessential defining weapon of the Hobbit.
There was certainly some quite strong thoughts right from the start as to what we could pursue with this.
It's the mate of Glamdring, and that basically as much as we knew about it. So the first thing that myself and Paul did was start drawing swords that looked a lot like Glamdring. And then we also looked at trying to include some of the shapes that were in Sting, because that's also a sword that's come from the same vintage as Glamdring and Orchrist. My feeling was that it could have the same profile as the edge of Glamdring, but then a straight edge on the other side, which would also give it quite an unusual shaped blade, and potentially quite a strong and broad blade, which would look good in the hands of a dwarf.
That was exactly the route I took. I love Sting, I love Daniel's design, and I based most of my designs off that wider blade.
Quite like the blade. It's a good shape.
It's lovely.
Unusual shape, and it's just got the right balance to it.
Peter was really adamant that he was wanting to see something different. Like a lot of our designs were falling into the category of, I've seen it with Glamdring, I've seen it with Sting.
Well, it's quite interesting, and we're saying it's elfin-made.
Yeah.
Why don't we do something different with the handle so it doesn't look like a warmed-up Sting?
So that's when I kind of went down the kind of slightly crazy road again, and, you know, biter is the sword. And so I thought, well, what about a tooth for the hilt? So I offered that up, and Peter went for it. I wouldn't like to say that it's a dragon's tooth because, you know, when we were researching the lore, certainly there's no indication that that's the case. But given that there's a dragon in the film, again, there's a nice theme running through there, so maybe it is.
So Orchrist, of course, is the goblin cleaver, and it says that on the sword. But then also on the blade it says the serpent's tooth, which is really cool because that's in reference to the fact that it has a dragon's tooth in the handle. And then on the scabbard, it says, born from the maws of dragons, and I am always hungry and thirsty. How cool is that? That's awesome.
And then, of course, that design has to be made, and that falls firmly on the shoulders of Peter Lyon, our swordsmith.
I tend to do the finishing on all the hero swords because basically I've been doing it for 25 years, so I've gotten very good at knowing just by feel what's going on with the grinders.
That blade was a unbelievably challenging thing to make because you're hand grinding by eye a blade that has to have immensely accurate tolerances so that as light glances off it, it has no wave pattern through it. It has to look absolutely pure in its linear form while still capturing the subtlety of the design.
Yeah, this will have an aluminium armature in it, and that will be in polyfoam.
And it'll be lightweight.
Very, yeah.
There was an idea that I came with at the very, very beginning, which I didn't really think would go anywhere, but it was something that Peter quite liked the idea of, which was that at the Battle of Moria Gates, where this branch of the tree saved his life, I thought that maybe he'd kept the branch.
Richard did a little illustration, conceptualised the idea that if this branch had had such a significance in his survival, surely he therefore would give it mythology, would heirloom it, would hew it into a usable weapon, a usable form of defence.
He's kind of created a gauntlet from it, which goes from the fist to the arm, and it's got 2 metal hooks on the back, and it's a kind of multi-purpose weapon, so it can punch and it can be a shield. So that's something that's evolved.
Got rid of the knobbly fist. It had those splits that look like fingers. Yeah. Put that in and that in. Yep. Put the curve in.
Yep. Well, I think it's good. I mean, it looks more like a tree trunk.
It's almost like the personification of a dwarf that rather than getting old with age, they kind of harden with age and they become more fierce warriors with age.
Yeah!
I think you can do what you want, boys, because I've obviously killed him, so he's dead already. So
no, he's not.
He's dead. He's dead. I got him right between the eyes.
Remember?
We've got a ridiculous array of weapons. After a while, they can get very heavy. Very heavy with the fighting, can get very heavy. Props, weapons, costumes, bags.
Dino has a spade. If anyone needs a spade,
I've got it.
He's got a spade.
Put all those things together, and you're looking at 25, 28 kgs in my case, if I've got absolutely everything going. And that's quite a lot of weight to be carrying around for any length of time.
This is the patented Oin cooling system. With your hands shoved down these tubes, you will never, ever become overheated, either in the delivery of your performance or the rubbish you speak to the camera.
We were the most useless race. We cannot do anything. When the camera's off, I mean, the state of us, I mean, we're all just half-baked and dead by the side of the set, and with, fans in everyone's faces, and, makeup artists coming over. I'll get my sweat, my back. Just people cooling stuff on, and Peter raring to get going again with another take. It's hilarious.
Sweat literally pools in my arms. And what happens is that the combination of the talcum powder and the sweat produces this really disgusting, milky consistency that starts to just leak from your fingers.
Dwarven milk. Fresh Dwarven milk.
There we go. Ready for the milk.
Oh, you're getting your arms out.
Thanks, Tom. Really, really fast.
They don't like taking them off because the poor person that has to take my arms off, they have to get a hold of the top and they yank it. And in the yanking, well, the milk just goes everywhere. Mainly on the face of the poor makeup girl who's taking my arms off.
Do I deliver or what?
There you go. Enjoy.
I don't normally spray it quite that much.
You do get extremely hot. So we have this cooling suit that racing car drivers wear.
The cool vest has a hose. The hose plugs into a cool pack, which is then filled with ice and cold water. So within about 10 seconds of plugging in, this little puppy will start pumping water all around their body, underneath all of their layers of fat suit and costume.
So as soon as we finish a take and they call cut, we plug into the little chili bin that's got the iced water in it.
And then we're like astronauts carrying around our little pumps that is pumping cold water around our bodies.
People will shout, "Could you plug me in?"
And it's pumped through, and it is wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
Can you feel that already?
It feels like I am pissing myself. It's great. I think in the second day we're all complaining about something, about how hot it was, and we thought, We just need a big place for us to hang out, a big tent with just stick in loads of air conditioning, put it in loads of it and pump it in, and we can all wait in there. It was done the next day.
Here we are in the quarantine tent.
At the end of the night, you're looked after by an incredible crew. You know, they've had 18 months of sweaty, grumpy dwarves coming into them at the end of the night, and they have to take off all their layers.
I stink.
When we went into The Hobbit, we had this notion that this was going to be a somewhat smaller, easier film to make than The Lord of the Rings. And we came to realise very quickly that that is just absolutely not the case. Each dwarf has to travel with a crew of 5 dedicated people.
When you think about the number of people there are who have to dress us, who have to find all our props, and then we all have stunt doubles, a scale double, suddenly the number of people in the cast is trebled.
There's sometimes a picture double, there's sometimes a stunt double for the scale double, and it makes for an amazing array of different performers required to deliver a single role.
Hi. Hi.
One day, we made up all the dwarves and all their scale doubles. That was the day that we realised what we were doing. That was when you realised it was going to be absolutely mammoth, and it was going to be much larger than Lord of the Rings ever was.
Yeah, it was quite surreal, really quite surreal, especially when the scales walked in. It was just like, oh my God, have we really done this? Look what we created.
Are we all done? Yes. What? Yep. Are there any women here?
When we all put our gear on and we all stood together to look at the guys that were going on the quest, yeah, I got a real tingle up my spine.
That was actually quite genuinely moving. Seeing all of you together and looking into each other's eyes.
All of these characters give you your own character as well. So when I met Balin and when I met Dwalin, it was it really feels like you're stepping into Middle-earth, and I don't feel like myself at all.
It was just an amazing experience to see them realised in their true form. Watching the actors express through the makeup that you sculpted is just so rewarding. It's just a wonderful experience.
And all of it, you know, very worthwhile process to get it exactly right, so that their overall presence, their personality, their prosthetics, their hair, everything is sympathetic towards the character that they're playing.
And all the Tolkien fans, they can rest assured that there's a team here that have their heart and soul into creating something very, very special.